I never thought I'd be the kind of person to go bungee jumping, let alone agree to do it with someone I'd met less than a month ago. But there I was, standing on the edge of this rickety wooden platform, heart hammering like I'd just chugged 3 espressos, and all because of Nathan. Yeah, that Nathan, the guy who sat next to me in our last semester art history class and suddenly decided he wanted to try something crazy before graduation. Let me back up a bit, because this whole thing feels like a weird fever dream I'm still trying to process. So I'm Jake, 21 years old, about to graduate with a degree in graphic design. I'm that classic overachiever type who's been playing it safe his entire college life. Same routine, same small group of friends, same favorite coffee spot on campus. And then Nathan shows up. He's this tall, messy-haired guy with an easy smile and a laugh that somehow feels like it fills the whole room. I remember the first time we talked, it was during a group project in art history, and he cracked a joke that was so out of left field I thought I'd misheard him. But he was serious, and that's how he got me interested. Nathan's not from around here. He transferred from some school 3 states away, and he's got this restless energy about him, like he's always chasing something just out of reach. He told me, pretty casually one afternoon, before graduation, I want to do something insane, something that'll make me feel alive. At first, I thought he was just being dramatic. But then he started dropping hints: skydiving, road trips, midnight swims in the lake. That's when he mentioned bungee jumping. My stomach dropped. I'd never even thought about doing something like that, mostly because I'm not exactly a thrill seeker. But Nathan's enthusiasm is contagious, and before I knew it, I was agreeing to go with him. Maybe I just wanted to see that spark in his eyes up close, or maybe I was tired of playing it safe myself. Either way, here we are. It's late May, just a couple of weeks before graduation, and the campus is buzzing with a mix of excitement and exhaustion. Everyone's talking about job offers, moving plans, and the next chapter, but Nathan and I have been sneaking away from all that noise to talk about this jump. He's been planning it for days, researching the best spots, checking reviews, even convincing an instructor to squeeze us in last minute. Now, as we stand here with the sun setting behind the mountains, casting this golden glow over the valley below, I'm trying not to think about the fact that in just a few minutes I'm going to leap off this platform tethered only by a cord. Nathan's beside me, grinning like it's the most normal thing in the world, and I have to admit, part of me is starting to feel that weird kind of excitement he promised. So yeah, this is how I ended up agreeing to do something crazy before graduation. And honestly, I have no idea what's about to happen next, but if I'm being completely honest, something tells me it's going to be a hell of a story. Nathan nudged me with his elbow, breaking through the whirlwind of thoughts I was having. "You look like you're about to bail," he said, grinning like the adrenaline hadn't touched him yet. "Maybe I am," I admitted, trying to force a laugh but feeling my throat tighten instead. I mean, this isn't exactly what I imagined doing with my last few weeks of college. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping just enough to feel like a secret. That's the point though, isn't it? Doing something that scares you, that shakes up the usual. I could feel the warmth from his proximity, and suddenly, the fear that had been tightening my chest loosened a little. Maybe it was the way his eyes held mine, steady and sure, like he was telling me that it was going to be okay. Or maybe it was just the ridiculousness of the whole situation. Either way, I nodded. Okay, let's do this. The instructor, a no-nonsense woman named Lisa, hurried over with the harnesses and a checklist. She walked us through every safety detail, her voice calm and professional, which helped ground me a bit. Nathan was practically vibrating with excitement, barely able to keep still as Lisa fitted the harness around him. When it was my turn, I felt the straps tighten around my legs and chest. The harness was snug but comfortable, almost like a weird kind of armor. Nathan caught me looking at it and joked, "Suit up, Space Ranger." I smiled, despite the nerves. "Yeah, I feel ready to conquer a moon or something." "Good attitude," Lisa said with a smirk. "Just keep your head up and don't look down." Easier said than done. We moved to the very edge of the platform. The drop was more terrifying than I thought it would be, more vertical and more open than I'd imagined. Below us, the valley stretched out like a giant green quilt, dotted with tiny houses and winding rivers. The wind whipped around, making the whole thing feel unreal. Nathan stepped forward first. "Your turn, Jake. I'll be right here when you land." He gave me a reassuring thumbs up, and somehow, that small gesture settled my nerves. I took a deep breath, and before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped to the edge. The world seemed to slow down. I could hear Nathan's voice faintly in the background, telling me to trust the cord, trust myself. I closed my eyes for a moment, and then I jumped. The first second was pure freefall, my stomach flipping like I'd just dropped off a roller coaster peak. The wind roared past my ears, and for a moment I felt like I was flying. Then the cord snapped taut, yanking me back up, and I bounced a few times before settling into the gentle sway. When I finally opened my eyes, all I could see was the sky and the mountains, and below, Nathan's grinning face looking up at me. I laughed, a real, breathless laugh, the kind that comes from pure exhilaration. That was insane. He held me back to the platform, and I felt this rush of accomplishment I hadn't expected. But more than that, I noticed something about Nathan. I'd never really paid attention to how he looked when he was genuinely happy, not just joking around. His eyes lit up in a way that made my chest tighten, and I caught myself staring longer than I meant to. As we walked back to the car, adrenaline still buzzing through me, Nathan nudged my arm. "See? Crazy, but worth it." "Yeah," I said, voice a little quieter than before. "Definitely worth it." We didn't talk much on the drive home, just the usual banter, but there was a new kind of energy between us. Something unspoken, like the jump had shifted something, not just physically, but between us. Later that night, I found myself replaying the day over and over. The jump, Nathan's smile, the way his hand brushed against mine when we were gearing up. I had no idea where this was going, but suddenly, the idea of trying something crazy didn't seem so terrifying anymore. Maybe it was exactly what I needed. The next few days felt weirdly electric. It was like that jump had stirred up something in Nathan and me, though neither of us said anything about it outright. We kept hanging out, sometimes studying together, sometimes just grabbing coffee or wandering around campus. But there was this new kind of quiet understanding between us, like we'd crossed some invisible line. One afternoon, we ended up sprawled out on the grass by the student center, watching the clouds drift by. It was warm, the kind of spring day that makes you want to forget all your deadlines and just exist in the moment. Nathan was tossing a small pebble in his hand, looking thoughtful. "So," he said, breaking the silence, "what made you actually jump? I mean, I know you're not exactly the thrill-seeker type." I shrugged, trying to sound casual, but my heart was racing just thinking about it. "I guess it was you. You kept saying, 'Try something crazy,' and I guess I was tired of always playing it safe. Plus, you made it seem like it wasn't just about the jump, you know? Like it was about doing something that meant something." Nathan tilted his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Yeah, it's about feeling alive. Sometimes you gotta shake things up to see what's really there." I looked at him, really looked at him. There was something open in his eyes, something that made me want to be just as honest. I liked that. I liked doing it with you. His smile widened, and for a second, the world felt smaller, like it was just the two of us lying there on the grass. "Me too," he said quietly. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. There was this soft warmth lingering in my chest, the kind you get when you realize something might be starting to change. I told myself to take it slow, that maybe I was just imagining things. But deep down, I knew this was different. The next day, Nathan texted me out of the blue, asking if I wanted to grab dinner. We ended up at this tiny little Thai place off campus, the kind of hole in the wall that doesn't look like much but serves the best food you've ever had. We sat close in the dim light, laughing over spicy noodles and sharing stories about our families and dreams beyond college. At one point, Nathan reached across the table and brushed a stray lock of hair off my forehead. It was such a small gesture, but it sent this jolt through me I wasn't expecting. I caught his eyes, and suddenly all the words I'd been holding back felt like they were bubbling to the surface. "Jake," he said softly, "can I be honest with you?" "Yeah," I breathed, my heart pounding. I've been wanting to do more than try something crazy these past few weeks. I mean, with you. You make me feel like doing crazy things is worth it." He smiled, a little nervous but genuine. "I don't want this to be just about the jump. I want to see where this goes." I felt like I was floating. All the fear, all the hesitation, it melted away, replaced by something quiet and sure. Nathan, I've been feeling the same way. I was just scared to say it first. He laughed, the sound warm and relieved, and then leaned in just a bit closer. So, what do you say? Want to try something else crazy? Like, maybe us? I nodded, grinning like a fool. Yeah. Let's see where this goes. That night, as I lay in bed replaying the whole conversation, I realized that taking that leap off the platform wasn't just about the adrenaline rush. It was about taking a chance on something new, something real. And with Nathan, it felt like maybe the craziest thing I could do was also the best one. I don't know what's next for us, but right now, I'm okay with that. Because sometimes the best stories don't come from playing it safe. They come from jumping headfirst into the unknown. And honestly, I can't wait to see where this goes. After that night, everything shifted in this subtle, quiet way. Nathan and I started spending more time together, not just the casual hangouts, but real dates. It was still college, so our schedules were unpredictable, but whenever we got the chance, we'd carve out hours just to be with each other. One evening, a few days after the dinner at the Thai place, Nathan texted me to say he'd found a cute little art exhibit downtown that was supposed to have some interactive installations. It sounded like something that would totally be his vibe, and honestly, I was into it too. So I said yes. We met outside the gallery just as the sun was setting. The streets had that golden glow you get in late spring, with people milling about, music drifting from nearby cafes. Nathan was wearing that same carefree grin, and I felt this easy warmth settle in my chest just looking at him. Inside the gallery, the atmosphere was intimate and creative. There were paintings and sculptures, but what caught our attention were the installations where you could touch, move, and even contribute. It was playful and immersive, and for once, I felt comfortable letting my guard down in front of him. At one point, we found this room filled with mirrors and colored lights. Nathan pulled me toward the center and grinned. Ready for some weird self-reflection? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in a while. Lead the way. We wandered through the maze of reflections, our images fracturing and multiplying in strange ways. Nathan caught my hand suddenly, and the small contact sent a familiar buzz through me. We stopped for a moment, just looking at each other through the kaleidoscope of lights. Remember when you said you wanted to try crazy things before graduation? He asked softly. Yeah, I said, nerves creeping back in. Well, this feels crazy to me, he admitted, but in the best way. His voice had that vulnerable edge I'd been waiting for, and I reached up to brush a stray curl from his forehead. I think this is the best kind of crazy. We stayed there a little longer, close enough to hear each other's breathing, before finally pulling away and continuing through the exhibit. Later, we grabbed ice cream and sat on a bench outside, talking about everything and nothing, our hopes, fears, and the weird feeling of ending one chapter and starting another. Things weren't perfect, of course. There were moments when I'd catch myself second-guessing, wondering if I was moving too fast, or if Nathan even felt the same way I did beneath all the lightheartedness. There were nights I'd lie awake, twisting my phone in my hands, debating whether to send a text or just wait for him to reach out. But Nathan? He was patient. He never pushed, never rushed. He just kept showing up, the way he laughed at my dumb jokes, how he remembered the little things like my favorite coffee order, or how I liked my music loud when I was stressed. Those small details built this quiet foundation that made me think, maybe, just maybe, this could last. One afternoon, a week before graduation, we found ourselves sitting on the hill overlooking campus. The breeze was cool, and the sun was dipping low when Nathan spoke up. Do you ever think about what comes next? After all this? I shrugged, watching the leaves rustle. Honestly, I'm scared. I don't know where I'll end up, or if I'll find a job I like. Everything feels so uncertain, he nodded. Same here, but maybe the uncertainty isn't the bad part. Maybe it's the chance to figure out who we want to be. I looked over at him, feeling this swell of affection that made my chest ache a little. I'm glad I met you, Nathan. You make the unknown less scary. He smiled that crooked, breath-catching smile and reached over, taking my hand in his. We'll figure it out together. We sat like that for what felt like forever, just holding on to that moment. Graduation loomed ahead, a mix of excitement and fear, but with Nathan beside me, It felt like I could face whatever came next. That night, as I lay in bed replaying everything, the jump, the gallery, the quiet moments on the hill, I realized something important. Life might throw all kinds of crazy at us, but sometimes the best thing you can do is take a chance. On a jump, on a person, on yourself. Nathan wanted to try something crazy before graduation, and I'm pretty sure we both got more than we bargained for. But honestly, I wouldn't change a single second of it. Graduation day arrived faster than I thought it would, and with it, this strange mix of excitement and this heavy, sinking feeling that maybe something was coming to an end. I was standing by the quad with Nathan, both of us in those awkward caps and gowns, the sun beating down, the murmur of everyone around buzzing with last-minute goodbyes and congratulations. Nathan looked over at me with that familiar grin, but there was something softer in his eyes today. Crazy to think it's all almost over. Yeah? I nodded, trying to sound casual, but my throat felt tight. Feels like the start of something, but also an ending. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Do you want to get out of here after the ceremony? Just go somewhere quiet? I wanted that, more than I expected. Yeah, definitely. The ceremony itself was a blur of speeches, applause, and the satisfying weight of my diploma in my hand. Walking across that stage was surreal, but once it was done, Nathan and I slipped away from the crowd before the official after-parties kicked off. We drove out to that same hill where we talked a week earlier, the one overlooking the entire campus. The city stretched out below, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled. We sat in the car for a while, neither of us saying much, just letting the quiet fill the space between us. Finally, Nathan reached over and took my hand. Jake, I know we've been talking about what's next, but I was thinking, what if we didn't try to figure it all out right now? What if we just take things one day at a time? I smiled, the tension easing off my chest. One day at a time sounds doable. He squeezed my hand gently. Because honestly, I want us to go somewhere. Not just as a college thing, but something real. My heart just about skipped a beat. I want that too. We sat together in the quiet, the city stretching out beneath us like a promise. But then, Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his smile faltering just a little. It's my mom. She's been asking about me moving back home after graduation. Says there's a job waiting for me there. I nodded, not surprised. Nathan had always been a bit guarded about the family stuff, but I knew it weighed on him. Have you told her you're thinking about staying here? He shook his head. Not yet. I'm still figuring it out. The weight of that uncertainty settled between us. I could tell this wasn't just about a job. It was about who Nathan was, where he felt he belonged, and maybe what sacrifices he was willing to make. Whatever you decide. I said quietly, I'm here, and I want to be part of it. He looked at me, something vulnerable shining through. Thanks, Jake. That means a lot. Over the next few days, we tried to enjoy the last bits of college life. The lazy mornings, the spontaneous road trips, the late-night talks that stretched into dawn. But beneath all the laughter, there was this quiet tension, the looming question of what would happen once graduation was over. One evening, after a particularly long day of packing and goodbyes, Nathan and I found ourselves back at that hill again. The sky was clear, stars scattered like diamonds overhead. He turned to me, voice soft. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, the one day at a time thing. And honestly, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. I reached out, tracing the line of his jaw with my fingers, a nervous gesture that somehow felt right. You won't. We'll figure it out together. He smiled, eyes glistening. I want that. But I'm scared, Jake. Scared that the real world will pull us apart. Me too, I admitted. But maybe that's why we have to try. Because the things worth having aren't easy. Nathan leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in the kind of kiss that felt like a promise and a question all at once. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, breath mingling. Let's promise something, he whispered. No matter where we end up, we won't just give up on this. I nodded, feeling a surge of hope despite the fear. Promise. Graduation day marked an ending, sure, but for Nathan and me, it was also the start of something messy, uncertain, and maybe even beautiful. Maybe trying something crazy before graduation wasn't about the jump or the thrill. It was about taking a chance on something real. And for the first time, I was okay with the unknown. Because sometimes, the craziest leap you take is trusting someone enough to let them in. The weeks after graduation felt like walking a tightrope without a safety net. Nathan and I were officially no longer college students, but instead of diving headfirst into the real world, we were stuck in this limbo of uncertainty. I was applying for graphic design jobs, sending out portfolios, going to interviews that sometimes felt like a game I didn't know how to play. Nathan was wrestling with his own choices, whether to take that job back home or try to stay in the city with me. We'd promised to figure it out together, but the how wasn't clear, and sometimes it felt like the pressure was stretching us thin. Still, we held on to those moments that made it all worth it. The lazy Sunday mornings, the way he'd make me coffee just the way I liked it, the late-night talks where we dared to dream aloud even when it scared us. One evening, Nathan knocked on my apartment door, looking a little more tense than usual. I could tell right away that something was on his mind. "Hey," I said, moving aside to let him in. "What's up?" He shrugged but didn't meet my eyes. "I got a call from my mom today." I nodded, sitting down on the couch and patting the spot beside me. "And?" He sat, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd come to recognize. "She wants me to come back home. The job's still there, and she's been pretty clear that it's what she expects." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "Have you told her you want to stay here? With me?" Nathan looked up, eyes searching mine. "Not exactly. I'm trying to figure out how to say it without making things worse." I reached out, taking his hand in mine. "You don't have to do this alone, you know. We're in this together." He gave me a small, grateful smile, but still looked torn. "I know, it's just complicated." We sat there for a while, the silence heavy but not uncomfortable. I wanted to say more, to tell him that wherever he chose, I'd support him. But I also knew that this wasn't something I could fix with words. The next few days were some of the hardest. Nathan grew quieter, more withdrawn, and I found myself biting my tongue when I wanted to ask if he'd made a decision. I could see the weight of it in his eyes, the tug-of-war between family expectations and the life we were trying to build. One rainy afternoon, I was working on a freelance project when my phone buzzed. It was Nathan. "Can we talk?" the message read. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my jacket and headed over to his place. When I got there, he was sitting on the floor, surrounded by packed boxes and half-empty suitcases. His face was tired, but when he saw me, a flicker of relief passed through his expression. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," I replied, sitting down beside him. He took a deep breath. "I told my mom I'm not ready to move back yet, that I want to try staying here, see if I can make it work." I felt a rush of pride and relief. "That's really great, Nathan." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, but it's not going to be easy. She's upset. I think she thought I'd just come home and settle into that job, but I'm not ready for that life." I squeezed his hand. "You don't have to settle for anything you don't want." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw a vulnerability there that made my heart ache. "I'm scared, Jake. Scared that staying here means disappointing my family. Scared that us, won't survive the pressure." I swallowed hard. "I'm scared too, but I want to try. I want us to try." He nodded slowly, leaning his head on my shoulder. "One day at a time." We sat like that for a while, the rain tapping softly against the window, the world outside feeling a little less overwhelming because we were facing it together. Over the next few weeks, things didn't magically get easier. There were tense phone calls, moments when Nathan seemed distant, and nights I'd wake up wondering if we were making the right choice. But beneath all the uncertainty, there was a thread holding us steady, a belief that this was worth fighting for. One night, after a late dinner, Nathan surprised me by pulling out a small, folded piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked, curious. He grinned sheepishly. "Just something I wrote. Thought maybe it could help when things get tough." I unfolded it and read. Sometimes the craziest things are the ones worth taking a chance on. Because in the end, It's not about the leap. It's about who catches you. I looked up at him, feeling something swell inside that I couldn't quite put into words. "Thank you," I said softly, "for catching me." He smiled, the kind of smile that reaches your soul. Always. I don't know what the future holds for Nathan and me. We're still figuring it out, one day at a time. But I do know this. Sometimes the craziest thing you can do before graduation isn't the jump off a platform or the wild adventure. It's deciding to take a chance on someone else. And for me, that's been the most incredible leap of all. The months that followed weren't perfect, but they were ours. Nathan and I found our rhythm, not just as partners, but as two people navigating the messy, unpredictable transition from college into whatever came next. He kept juggling the pressure from his family, and I kept chasing jobs that didn't always pan out the way I hoped. But through it all, we had this quiet understanding. We were in it together. One evening, a few months after graduation, we sat on the couch in my tiny apartment, sharing a bottle of cheap wine and laughing over some inside joke I can't even remember now. The city lights twinkled outside the window, and somewhere in the background, a playlist Nathan made filled the room with soft melodies. He reached over and caught my hand, pulling me close just enough that I could feel the steady beat of his heart. "You know," he said, voice low and warm, "I was terrified after graduation, scared that everything would fall apart. But having you here, it's made all the difference." I smiled, resting my head against his shoulder. "Me too. I think the jump wasn't just off that platform. It was jumping into this, into us." He laughed softly. "Yeah, and honestly, it's been the best kind of crazy." We sat there for a while, not needing to say anything else. Just the two of us, together in the quiet. Looking back, I realized that trying something crazy before graduation wasn't about the adrenaline rush or checking off some bucket list. It was about taking risks in the parts of life that matter most, letting myself be vulnerable, trusting someone with my fears and hopes, and daring to imagine a future that wasn't just safe, but real. Nathan showed me that sometimes the biggest leaps aren't the ones off a cliff. They're the ones where you open your heart and let someone in. And honestly, I'm grateful for every terrifying, exhilarating second of it, because it brought me to him. And that's more than enough.